This episode includes negative depictions and simplified stereotypes of people or cultures. These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than ignoring parts of the park's history, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this episode, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland and Disneyland history with mementos, snapshots, and postcards sent from Disneyland from 1955 to the present. Today I'm starting off by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join and receive mail from my desk or from my Disneyland trips. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the e-ticket patrons Tania, Eric Daniels, Joe Gamble, Scott Booker, Monica Seitz Vega, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, Scott Cagle, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Grace Coate, Brian Crawford, Ben and Noel Bruning, Patty Wolin, Angela Reynolds, and Aaron Moran. B-ticket patrons Jeff and Paige Orton, and Joshua, and Inexorable Tosh Bell. And the A-ticket patrons Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Maggie and Henry Byers, the Disney Rewind podcast, Angel DeBlock, and the All Aboard podcast. You can also sign up for my new newsletter for a chance to get some postcards delivered by the USPS to your mailbox. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has Walt Disney standing in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle, surrounded by different characters. Some of the more unique ones include a camel, Kanga from Winnie the Pooh, and the ostrich from Fantasia. On the back it reads, "It all started with the mouse. Sleeping Beauty's castle towers above a colorful array of characters from the world of make-believe, led by Walt Disney and his first and foremost star, Mickey Mouse." It's not postmarked and doesn't have a stamp. Let's assume they visited the park 60 years ago, on Saturday, February 29th, 1964, when park hours were from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The weather was a high of 66 and a low of 45, with 0.11 inches of precipitation. Park attendance that day was 15,208. It's addressed to Mommy and Daddy with no physical address. It reads, "My Uncle Walt once gave me a guided tour. Anything like the set at Caroline's high school play? Prince Charming." Since last week we went over some of the smoking-related items I have from the park, I thought this week we would review my Disney matchbook collection. Let's start by talking about the anatomy of a matchbook. Matchbooks have remained the same for the last 100 years. The common Disney matchbook holds between 20 and 30 matches inside folded cardboard. The front of the book would open to reveal a comb, which would commonly be 2 rows of 10 or 15 matches. There would be a small lip at the bottom on the front that would keep the book closed. That section of the front cover would be called the footer. The top of the matchbook was known as the saddle and would have 2 folds separating the front from the back. The bottom of the matchbook there would be a small staple holding all the elements together. Depending on the matchbook, there would be a striker on the bottom front or the bottom back where a person would be able to run the match head to light the match. One of my more common finds from the park includes the Main Street Tobacco Shop matchbook. It's a dull gold color and common sized with about 20 matches in the comb. The front striking side of the matchbook has a Main Street lamppost with a Main Street street sign on the far left-hand side of the matchbook. On the bottom right-hand side, it reads Tobacco Shop in red ink and Disneyland in dark brown, both in a Gothic typeface. Finally, below the image and the writing on the footer reads, "Please close before striking." On the back side is an illustration of the Native American statue that stands in front of the old tobacco shop today. And on the lower right, it's the same tobacco shop and Disneyland in the Gothic typeface. Another Main Street matchbook in my collection is shiny gold with a repeated pattern of Main Street vehicles, including the horse-drawn streetcar, the omnibus, the horseless carriage, and the Carnation milk truck. There are also depictions of the electric street lamp and the Dapper Dans riding the bicycle built for 4. This pattern appears on the front and back side. On the bottom lip of the front side is the same color gold with the word Disneyland written in black. This matchbook has its striker on the back side of the book. The next Disneyland matchbook in my collection has the old Disneyland Castle logo, surrounded by 4 stars on the front cover with the word Disneyland on the bottom lip. On the back is the same pattern with the strike strip. The entire matchbook is a baby blue color, and on the bottom is printed copyright 1985 Walt Disney Productions. Great news! Enfield Post is back up on Etsy. Grabbing some vintage stamps is a great way to plus your mail, whether you're trying to match the color of your postcard or envelope or adding a themed stamp to the back of your mail. Be sure to check out Enfield Post. You can head over to EnfieldPost.com and explore all the different vintage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELDPOST on Instagram and EnfieldPost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has the exterior of the Upjohn Pharmacy on Main Street. On the back it reads, "The Upjohn Company's old-fashioned drugstore in Disneyland. Over 1,000 pharmaceutical antiques, including a giant mortar above the entrance, are displayed in this Victorian establishment." It's postmarked on the front of the card, June 8, 1964, with Los Angeles cancel and no postage stamp. I assume they visited the park on Sunday, June 7, 1964, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. The weather was a high of 71 and a low of 59. Park attendance that day was 19,999. It's addressed to Mrs. B. C. Pippin of Billings, Montana. It reads, "Dear Mom, would you go through my wedding gifts and send something to Deanna DeLoss? Something nice, please. Also, Samantha's last name is Pulecarp. Forget the cookbook. She wanted it, so I sold her mine." The next Disneyland matchbook is a yellow and blue Casa de Fritos front stripe matchbook. The front cover is yellow with a Frito kid holding a bag of Fritos and pointing towards a red oval that reads, "Meet me at Disneyland, Anaheim, California." Peeking over the oval are spires of the castle with some white clouds passing by. The back is blue with an illustration of Casa de Fritos in Disneyland. Above is a shaded tree and a sign that reads, "Casa de Fritos, authentic Mexican food," and below it reads, "Frontierland, Disneyland." Inside the matchbook is a map of the United States. Above it reads, "Fritos is a registered trademark of the Frito Company." Below the map, it reads, "Fritos, America's favorite corn chip, sold coast to coast." Also included on the map are cities where I assume Fritos were distributed. This includes Los Angeles, Stockton, Salt Lake City, Denver, Lubbock, Dallas, Houston, Tulsa, Council Bluffs, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Columbus, Chicago, Monroe, Barberton, Cleveland, Detroit, Worcester, Atlanta, Bethesda, Nazareth, and Mamaroneck. Printed on the individual matchsticks reads, "Many food or drink tastes better with Fritos. Try Fritos with sandwiches, burgers, soups, salads, hot dogs, Mexican food, and your favorite beverage." There are 30 matchsticks inside. The last Disneyland-specific matchbook in my collection has been used. It's a red matchbook with white writing. The front shows an image of the Red Wagon Inn, and above it reads, "Red Wagon Inn, on the Plaza." On the saddle of the matchbook reads, "Disneyland, copyright WDP for Walt Disney Productions." On the back is an image of the Plantation House, with chairs, tables, umbrellas inside a picket fence. Above it reads, "The Plantation House," and below it reads, "In Frontierland." The inside of the matchbook has information about the Plantation House French provincial decor, old Southern hospitality serving tender-grown Swift's premium chicken, and Red Wagon Inn featuring Swift's quality meats and chops amidst a gay 90s atmosphere. Since the matches have been used, I can read the bottom behind where the matches were. The company that made these matches was the Lion Match Company in Los Angeles, California. One of my non-Disneyland matchbooks is a Walt Disney Productions matchbook. On the saddle it reads, "Walt Disney Productions" in yellow lettering. On the front is an orange triangle with Mickey Mouse holding a red paintbrush. Above Mickey in red lettering, it reads Walt Disney in the Disney-style font, and then Productions in black. The striking strip is on the back, where it also reads Walt Disney Productions copyright, and on the bottom, information about the manufacturer, Diamond Match Division, Los Angeles, California, is written in yellow. Based on the design, this is from the Walt Disney Studio. This incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is an online craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific. Be sure to check out Monday's ATD, which is usually hosted by paper artist Russ Romano. I see many amazing art projects, learned about awesome postmarks, postage stamp history, and a lot more on different episodes. It's great to stop in for an hour to watch someone craft or design something unique. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming postcard has white hearts, printed on a red page. In the center heart, it reads, Valentine. It's postmarked February 9th, 2024, with a San Bernardino cancel and a dove with letter forever postage stamp, Scott number 5826. It reads, Sir, more than kisses, letters mingle souls, for thus friends absent speak. Thank you so much for the postcard. This postcard is from the Mojave Correspondence Club Patreon page. Be sure to check them out for some great male Patreon bonuses. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would be helpful to share your favorite episode to a friend or on social media. There are over 200 to choose from. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you'd like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sent From Disneyland, or on Twitter at Sent From Disney. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent From Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to its host and guests of the Sent from Disneyland podcast.